Okay, hello.
Hello.
Today we are going to dance with Linda Wardal, and I'm very excited. I love your work, the bits I've seen, and we met kind of through the MA in choreography at Escohor.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm really excited to get to know your dance a little bit. But if people don't know who you are, how do you introduce yourself?
Oh, that's also practice, right? I
Yeah.
try various presentations each time, I think. Well, my name is Linda. I'm from Gothenburg. On Instagram, I call myself Freelance Romance, which was more like a joke to myself because I feel like this freelancing is not really sustainable and not really working sometimes. And when I'm tired of it, I just see my job as sort of a romance that is really pleasurable but might end sometime, and then I need to go away from that romance. But yeah, and I think it's so funny that in festivals and whenever you do work, people always refer to your Instagram a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not freelance romance, I'm Linda Wardal, but there is this thing of like, yeah, but are you freelance romance now, or who is that? Yeah, but so...
You are now representing the romantic freelance lifestyle.
Yes,
That's what
yeah.
you
Yes, so I'm Linda, I would say I'm a choreographer and dancer and dance teacher.
Nice.
Who also has a romance with dance. Yes.
Awesome. And what are we going to do today?
We're gonna work on insisting. Firstly I thought I was working with repetition, but I have reconsidered.
Yeah.
And I work on insisting a movement a lot. So basically what I've been doing a lot the last year is to go into the studio, and when I don't really have a plan, or maybe I don't know where to get my motivation, I just go in, and the movement that chooses me, I will go with that movement.
And then you sort of insist on it.
Yes, I just spend a lot of time with the same movement.
Okay.
And what I've learned is that with time it changes, and I don't have to worry so much about it. I don't have to take so much responsibility of making it interesting. It sort of comes to me. And yeah, sometimes it is like working with habits.
Yeah.
But also it might be just a new movement that wants to spend time with me.
I can see why you felt like repetition was a thing.
Yeah.
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 And do you have a definition of movement? Like how long, how short? Like, is there a feeling of that, or is it sort of floaty? Like
it is sort of floaty. Like, as I said, I don't sort of choose it, but it chooses me.
Yeah. Okay. So it has a natural end and beginning.
Yeah, but something that, I don't know, tastes good in my body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess it's okay if it extends and moves a little bit from...
Absolutely. So what I was going to suggest for today is that we just start by receiving a movement, basically. And then we're going to work with that one for some time. And also, like, after spending time with it for some time, we start to notice the change. And first we just notice it. Like, we also don't have to worry so much about the change, because the change is going to happen anyway, I guess. And then we're just going to follow that change, still like knowing the original movement, but also trace the change and see where that leads us. And I picture that this could be eventually like a small solo. So let's see where in space it also takes us, but we don't have to worry so much about like trying to think of what it can become.
Right. And that's where the insistence comes. It
Yeah.
sort of relieves you from the pressure of having to create something spectacular, like to create a solo. You just insist, no, I stay with that movement.
Yeah.
And if it evolves, it evolves. If it becomes a solo, it becomes a solo.
Yeah.
And maybe it always was a solo, and maybe it always had evolved. But yeah.
Yeah.
Something like that. Okay, cool. That seems... Is there anything else? Like, maybe how long are we going to do it for, or how long do you propose to spend with it? Because it feels like something that needs a bit of time.
Yeah. At least like 20 minutes. I think it's good. I've prepared some music. I love having music that also is a bit repetitive or takes you into some kind of trance state of mind. So that's what I'm working on, working with.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
So if you're at home, you can pick a few songs, 4 songs, let's say, something like that.
Yeah. 4 songs, it's maybe 12 minutes. Depends on the length of the song.
I have a lot of long songs.
But yeah, that's great. So pick some songs, go with the first movement that arrives or comes to you, and then insist on it, let it evolve, or notice how it changes, and then you can go with its changing after you've noticed it for a bit and allow that. But you can always return to the insisting on the movement sort of thing.
So try to at least stay for a whole song with just that movement without so much change in it.
Great. I'm excited. Okay.
Me too.
Let's pause and we'll come back in a minute.
All right.
And we're back. That was amazing. I always say this, but I genuinely mean it. Like, really, what a wonderful practice.
Yeah, I'm biased, but I love it.
How was it for you today? Or like, where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start? I feel like from one single movement, there's so much that can come. It's like building a world out of this small thing.
Yes,
Yeah.
I definitely. I mean, I was just saying I feel dizzy and sick.
Oh.
Not in a negative way. I think there's just something about sticking to it and like feeling a little bit disoriented. Like there's a collapse of recognition almost, if that can make sense. Like for me, I noticed how it takes so little for the movement to feel completely different, and to try and insist on keeping something close to it is like, it's I love that word as well, like insisting, because it really pushes me to really try and hone into, okay, well then what is it? What is that movement? And I wonder, can anyone know a movement? This is where I ended.
Yeah, and can I ask you then, like, if you would name, could you name your movements now?
Yeah,
Do you think
for sure. I was thinking of, at some point I was thinking of steps. So like there's that like cliche of like every dance is essentially steps, like the falling or transferring of weight. However, mine was quite literally a transference of weight from one foot to the other, from back left to front right, with a swing of the arm, and there was a sort of weight swing in the middle as well. I'm not sure if it was equally pendulumed or if there was like a slight emphasis on the front, perhaps.
Probably.
Yeah, and of course it changed as it was going, but if I was to name it, rocking maybe would be like a a good summary. How about you?
Well, I think there's something interesting about naming it, because probably it is not just rocking, but maybe it needs all those things.
Yeah.
And in the naming, and I think it's so interesting that by spending time with your movement, I feel like also I know when it's not it and when it is. Like, I think also it has to do a lot about rhythm as well. Somehow, like I get into a rhythm, but then like I know what feels good and what doesn't. And by spending more and more time with it, I can also name, like I know, it's like a friend that you get to know better and better. So I know like suddenly I notice the small, like, oh, also the left foot is part of that. Yeah. And also that specific, oh, actually my head turns a bit. Like there's a certain angle and...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me also, like at some point my awareness went to my back, and then I had to ask, wait, is this still the same movement? Now my awareness is no longer where it was. Is my attention also included in the movement? But can I ask then if it's about this desire or like feeling good? Because I noticed by insisting, at some point I got fatigued, and I'd imagine I would want to change leg, for example, because I was really doing a small repetition and being on one leg. So how do you then change leg because the desire has changed, or how does it manifest for you?
Yeah, because my arms were really high up in the beginning. Okay. And then I realized that this is not going to work for so long. Yeah. And then I noticed that change of like, what is it that I want to correct or change? Yeah. And I think for me this whole practice is a lot about pleasure and finding what feels good. I think that the movement that has chosen me is there for a reason. There should be some pleasure in it.
There's something very romantic about that, and also it's sort of it's like almost suggests that the most pleasurable thing would be the most sustainable thing. Like it would be the thing that met all of our needs, so long as we changed it. Do you not? Because just to like push you a little bit further, like, was there no things included which are like become archetypes through which you can't escape? So for instance, if you lay down, because yours was vertical, because I saw it a lot. If you lay down, would you not feel like that has broken the insistence? Like, how dramatic of a drift, the arms coming down, I understand that as like it can drift, and I get that it can have a similar sensation, but can it drift all the way to like falling asleep? Because if you did this for 20 hours, at some point you would want to. Yeah.
I haven't tried, to be honest. And I think in general, I often start standing. It's my go-to. And maybe the aim... I think for me this is like the perfect warm-up. Like I could also go into the studio, and after 20 minutes of this, I'm already into something. Yeah. And maybe I let it go, or I'm already busy with something new. Yeah. So like, but probably with time it could go into laying down. I don't know how that curve would look like into the going down, but yeah, probably. Yeah.
I mean, I think maybe I'm like, because at the beginning I felt like there was two stages, because you mentioned like stick with it for at least one song, and I felt like you weren't. Like I had you in my periphery. I was like, that's but still, like I wasn't judging.
I was cheating, okay. I'll admit.
No, but like, so the first part like was like no, stay with it, and then there was an allowance for it to drift, and after the second song, so like I felt like there was two parts, and maybe I was sticking to the first one more, but still, like, even inside the first one where I'm trying my best to stay with that one movement, there's so much detail and subtlety that arises through just this like this occurring awareness of like actually what is included in this step of rocking, what is needed, what is the feeling of it, how does that maintain, like even like my feet shifted and I could feel the coolness of the floor where my feet weren't, and I felt, oh well, that's wrong. Like I know there was an importance to that. And then as I drifted, I think I still had like with me a little bit that sense of wanting to understand like what it is, like the details of it. Like it really makes me curious about the vastness of what it could be, in a way. Like I start to feel like I don't know my body, and maybe that's where the dizziness comes from. If that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes me think of Butoh practice.
Oh.
Like when you I've done Butoh for many different teachers, and like just walking for 1 hour really slowly, that's also like noticing the small shifts and taking care, or like really being into those small details. This practice goes in different directions for me. I think one thing is that it is interesting for me, like what are the movements that stays with me? Some movements I go back to. I recognize my patterns. It is a lot of swaying arms for me, and there's so much pleasure in that, so I'm recognizing it.
Yeah.
And then one part of this practice is just to build up images.
Okay.
Or just as a warm-up, or even.
Yeah.
But for example, today...
Do you mean that's something you add to this practice, or it's something that occurs to you when you're doing it?
It occurs, yeah. Like when I
I
insist a repetition, then I think, okay, now I'm almost going spiritual here, but I feel like there are these past experiences that comes through the body. Or I was starting with this, I felt like I was brushing away my hair, and after some time I was like, no, there's something else, and I got the image of a big troll mama. I had this picture in my childhood room of a big troll, and she was really round and warm, and she had a lot of hair, and I pictured her hair. And then I was like, but I'm going through something, because I was walking back and forward with this movement. And then I realized that, it's actually the notion of snow coming from in a certain weather, like especially in the town where I'm from, Göteborg, like the snow goes diagonally, or just like through you. And that was the movement. So I'm kind of like revisiting experiences, and also a lot of memories that are both fictional and lived experience.
Definitely. I think that's also what I think I was trying to, or what I felt was that, or touched on, was like a sense of that there's a multitude within the body already, and like definitely that sense of like a trance state really occurs, because it is this sort of like losing the sense of time and direction and where one is, and at some point I managed to move. I had my eyes closed and then I hit the wall.
Oh.
I wasn't trying to move. I was more focusing on if the ripple in my spine had shifted and how, and I think it caused my weight to start shifting in a different way, which caused me to move forward rather than stay on the spot. But also that do you think then this like pleasure is drawing us towards some sort of inbuilt or historic or ancestral or spiritual self or something? Like, I mean, yeah.
Well,
What do I mean?
well, thinking about like our first movements, like how we discovered the world, is a lot about insisting, trying to get the head up, trying to put weight on your hands and then on your feet, and that's really interesting. There is something essential in, and also comforting, I feel, in I will say repetition and insisting.
Yeah, it almost vibrates, the feeling of it. What would you call yours? If like, because you asked me to name mine. I mean, you've said now some words, of course, the troll mama and the snow.
Yeah. I'm tasting it now. With my hands, trying to name it.
Linda's insisting again.
Yes. Keep insisting. Yeah, it is something about all of those things. The snow, the getting my hair away from my face, the troll mama, walking backwards, walking front.
Beautiful. And speaking about vibration, and you spoke about rhythm earlier, one thing I did notice was like almost a friction with the rhythm of the music. At some point it was supportive, but then especially as it changed, I was like, wait a minute. The rhythm that feels like that exists in this movement that I found is slightly different. Like it's a slightly quicker tempo or slower tempo or something like that. I found that really interesting. But how does rhythm occur for you? Is it the repetition or is it something else?
I mean, lately in my work, I also work with insisting in the music, because I also started making my own music that is very repetitive, and I think I've always loved going into trance and also as an audience watching something that repeats or builds up but still has some kind of repetitive core, and I just find rhythm also very calming, or leading into something that feels very good to stay in, to dwell in, to watch, and to dance in. So I feel like rhythm comes with it somehow. And I guess, that's also from when we were a small fetus in our mother's womb, like the breath, the rhythm of the heart, there's something so essential to it.
Yeah, the cyclic sort of quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I feel like I find comfort in it.
Yeah, there's a sense of, and I think I felt this, like, there's only one thing. There's a sort of existential quality of, like, there's only, like, we somehow fictionalize that there are different things, but really it's the same rhythm, it's the same life, it's the same patterns we sort of playing with and repeating and reoccurring. And it's the different approaches and our ability to name differently, maybe, or to look at from different angles, but essentially, like, there's a motor that is always generating. I had to think of stillness and how when I'm working with stillness, there's a sense of, like, of course there's movement, or there's, like, rocking, or there's a vibrating, there's the breath, there's the heart, there's this sort of rhythmic undertone, there's the tensality of the muscles holding me standing or sitting or however, I mean, like, just holding my body together somehow, and that has, like, a sort of a echoing effect, like, regardless what I'm doing, it's still in conversation with that. And maybe that's also what you're connecting to, like, there's an underlying movement or rhythm or thing that came from birth, from the fetus, and continues with us somehow. And maybe this is one way of connecting with that.
Yeah. I also think about my a former ballet teacher, and she talked about, like, why do we do the same plie? You always start class with plie, bending your knees and getting up. And how she was like, no plie is the same as the day before. Or, we have this obsession of repeating things that are actually not repeatable in a way. I mean, they are, but it's never the same. So I would also call that insisting on something. And also, like, I think there's so much to this insisting, but I think it's also about turning up as a dancer in the studio. Like, that is also insisting, even when you're like, I don't know what I'm doing at the moment. But just, like, insisting that action of going into
said that.
the studio makes a difference, and something will come out of that.
Yeah, for sure. I have this concept that I've been working on, and it has to do with slow choreography, which is the idea that of choreography that is imperceivable, something that choreographs our movement, our dance, ourselves, but it's more like land erosion, just slowly trickling. And I always think of the ballet bar as, like, you repeat, you come back every day because you're slowly etching away at this form that is somehow at the core of your body and the core of how the nerves are all strung together and how the muscles all interact, and somehow how we're built, but also just this habitual nature of ourselves. And there's definitely something maybe there where you're insisting on engaging, perhaps. I was thinking about this word of to engage with that slow choreography that is underpinning self and maybe even value, like our ethical or subjective self, like how we perceive the world, through what lens, and so on, like these constitutional materials, building blocks, which allow us to give us the basis from which to understand and to practice and stuff. And I definitely agree, like the plie it comes back and again, and even, you know, your teacher said that it would repeat the second day, or the next day it'll be different. But it's almost like, but every time it's different. And one thing that I've always been fascinated by is approach. I was in a seminar, I think, and there was someone lecturing, talking about that every dance has time, space, and movement, something like that. And I'm like, yes, of course, but not everyone is approaching their dance from time, space, and movement.
It's there anyways.
Yeah, but the approach changes the what is understood. And somehow, like, by being in that repetition, I start to approach this vibrating value system or slow choreography or self from many different angles, from many different places. I get to like start to, oh wait, what if I consider the spine from this movement, or what if I consider the fingertips, or what if I consider what I'm looking at, or what if I consider what I'm hearing, what if I consider what my grandmother said 6 years ago, or like I don't know why I'm introducing approach, but it feels really relevant for me at the moment, at least. Was there anything else you wanted to add, or was thinking of?
Now I just thought of everything that we call practice could maybe also be called insisting.
Yeah.
So it all comes down to everything is.
I know that a lot of people have a problem with practice because it can be so broad. It can mean so many different things. But I know what you mean. Like, like practice has that sense of like returning, or something that is that establishes your way of doing. Yeah, I feel so inspired.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And if people want to get to know more about what you're working with and stuff, as the freelance romance, no, I'm joking, but as LInda,
yes,
how would they do that?
I think they can just like say hi. We seldom do that, or I think that there's so much coolness around, or like who can we approach and who shouldn't we approach. But you can always find me on freelance romance, or you can just say hi in the crowd, or you'll find me somewhere.
Yeah, you have a website as well.
I have a website, and I also go visit a lot of performances around in town.
And you'll have some showings in April.
Right.
In 2024.
Yes.
Here in Stockholm.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, you're around, and I will write the website and stuff and your Instagram in the description. But what a pleasure. I really hope we can do this again and continue dancing.
Yes, I would love to.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.